So we welcome now Julio or JP Marin to talk some wonderful things that will help our Spanish speaking independent podcasters. So, JP, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you everyone that's here. Let me share my screen here real quick so that we can. 1 second. No, not the right one. Sorry. All right. So is that good? Can everyone see it? If you can let me know.
It looks good. You
Nancy.
just want to put it
Okay.
in presenter mode. So, right where your mouse is, you just want to click where it says present, and that should make the whole screen just your presentation.
Oh, sorry. I think I've done that already. No, or no, wait. Here now? Can you see it better?
Yep.
Full?
Yep. Go for it. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Oh, wait. Let's see. It says, Analia, do you still see the Canvas screen? Yes. Okay.
Can you?
Let's see.
I see it as a full, so this is why I'm not. Hold
We
on. Oh yeah, I see it now. This is weird.
the since you have both screens
Hmm.
open, just make sure that you're sharing the right one if they're both logged into the Canva program.
Screen sharing stuff. You think we would figure this out, right?
We got it.
Good. Okay. All right. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So yes, let's begin. So the our talk is going to be about real models to monetize your show and make money. This is for Spanish speaking independent podcasters, but it's going to be also for people that have a Spanish speaking audience. So we're going to go we're going to talk about what really works for an audience that speaks Spanish or for or for you as a podcaster that speaks Spanish. So as you see, the presentation is bilingual because I know a lot of us here are bilingual, so I wanted to switch it up. But everything is going to be explained, or you'll read it, or it'll be very easy to understand as well. As Nancy said, my name is JP. I am the editor of Tropical Podcasting. Tropical Podcasting is a newsletter, a weekly newsletter where I break down the latest trends and strategies in the podcasting industry. I also have the show, the podcast called ¿Qué está pasando en el podcasting? Where me and my co-host Mayra, we break down what I wrote on the newsletter, and also we discuss, give more opinion about the things that's going on in the industry, and we try to make sense of what's happening in the industry overall, mainly the English speaking industry. And then we try to make sense into how that works for Spanish speakers, around the world in Latin America, in the US, and also in Spain. I also, before we dive in, I want to thank webneticos.com for allowing me to have this awesome background. This is not the usual background that I have on my podcast. This is just a one-time thing for this webinar. So we thank you for letting me use their space here in Puerto Rico. So who is this for? Who is this webinar for? This is for if you want to monetize your show, but the models that we see, the things that we see, they're not necessarily, they're all in English and they may not work precisely for the Spanish speaking community. Also, if your audience speaks Spanish, whether they are in Latin America or the US or in Spain. And if you are an independent, so if you're not a network, I know my friend Greg is going to be talking to you soon about why joining a podcast network is important. And, if you can and you want, you can do that. But there's also, you can absolutely can then work as an independent podcaster without having to, be under the structure of a podcast network. So we've all heard that this thing of we need a big audience to make money in podcasting. Like I need a huge audience, I need Joe Rogan numbers or Amy Poehler numbers. And we're going to talk about why that's not necessarily true. And we're going to go with the data. So the core idea for this presentation is going to be that a small audience has a big power, and you're going to see why. The proof. So this is data. This is from reports that I have covered inside the newsletter as well. That have gone out across the industry. 80% of the best ad campaigns have run on independent podcasts. This is from the Orbit tool from Oxford Road. So what does this mean? It's like Oxford Road measured billions of dollars in ad spend across 500 different advertisers, and 80% of the best campaigns. This is not on reach. This is results. So the best campaigns were on independent podcasters. Actually, the first show, the top show, was a D&D podcast, like a Dungeons and Dragons show. It wasn't, any of the big names. I mean, some of them were there, but the majority of the shows that actually worked when it came to ad spend, when the campaign actually worked, was independent shows, niche shows, people that have a very set audience. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. Another number here is this is from Edison Research and Acast is a 94% of people that listen to niche podcasts acted after listening. So whenever a show, made an ad or recommended a tool or whatever, those people made an action. So, bought something or clicked on a link or something like that. So these are very big numbers that you they need to have in mind whenever you are trying to present yourself as to the brands. And this is another report from Acast that's also included Mexico inside of the respondents on this a report. 33% of the people that participated in this report see podcasters with the same credibility as a journalist when they recommend something. So when you recommend a tool, when you recommend a service, anything, people are seeing podcasters on the same wavelength as journalists. So we're going to talk about what's actually moving money. This is a little bit more also of like what's going on, the trends of how money is being moved. Direct money is outgrowing ad reliance. So money that's going directly to the show, to the podcasters. As you see here, Patreon paid out last year $629 million to podcasters. Actually, podcasters is this the top category in Patreon for the second year in a row. So people are using Patreon to support their favorite podcasters. Now, remember, this kind of changes a little bit when you are considering people in Latin America. A monthly membership assumes that you have a card where, that membership can come out of. And sometimes in Latin America, that is not the case. In different places in Latin America, we have to remember, that there are different countries have their own different ways of moving money around. And usually in Latin America, cash is more resilient than this whole membership thing. So if you have audience in Latin America, you're probably better off instead of offering something that's, every month, you're probably just better off asking for something a one payment, like a year payment. So say, $40, $4 a month, 42, 47, $50 a year, something like that, just so that you can get like that one direct income trend from the audience, because the way that it works in Latin America, like I said, in different countries, it's not necessarily everybody, can use a card or whatever where the membership can come out of. So that's something that you need to also be paying attention is where your audience is and what is the trend in terms of moving money around. Does PayPal work or do they have a local PayPal? Like, like is it more of a digital currency or is it more cash currency? Those are things that you need to be um, uh, aware of. Trend number two, downloads measure reach, not value. We've heard a lot of this. Downloads are dead, downloads don't work, downloads this, downloads that. The download is it's an important feature still. It's an important number, but you have to be aware of the context of how you use it. Are you saying to a brand, well, my last episode in the last month, I had 1,500 downloads. That's a good idea to see, like how much you're actually, how many people you're kind of reaching. But at the same time, somebody can download your episode, go into their phone and stay there, and they don't listen to a second of your show. So that's why, you can't see downloads as value. Downloads do not mean people. A download can literally mean, it's just a transfer of data. The file went from your hosting service to somebody else's phone, and somebody maybe listened to 10 minutes, somebody listened to the whole thing, or maybe somebody hasn't listened to it at all. Maybe somebody sees it, subscribes, the app that they use, works in different ways and in the settings, and they've downloaded the last 5 episodes that you have uploaded, but they haven't consumed any of it. So that's why you have to be careful when you see the downloads. It's a good idea to kind of have a ballpark feature of how many people you're reaching, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're reaching those people and those people are consuming your content. So what you want to sell to these brands when you monetize is the trust that your audience has in you. Another trend is the flat rate beats the CPM all the time, and we'll see why that. Like, brands are not really utilizing podcasting in Latin America in a as they should, and they're still underusing it. And a flat rate beats the CPM always, especially if you have a small audience that has big power. So if you have a small niche audience that you know that you can convince to use this product or the service that you love and you can't live without, and you know that they can also start using it and feel the same way as you. So instead of going to this brand and saying, I'll have a $12, $15, $17 if you're lucky CPM, the cost per mil. So like every 1,000 downloads, you get X amount. You can go be like, all right, well then I'm gonna run your ad promoting your show or whatever for X rate for 3 months. So I'm gonna for $500, I'm gonna run it or whatever. It depends on the flat rate. But that is a more effective way of monetizing your show, and starting a relationship with a brand than hoping to get the 1,000 downloads, especially if you don't have the 1,000 downloads. If you have it, like if you're blessed and your show gets 5,000 downloads per episode on average, then you can go on a CPM. If you're in the United States, you can absolutely go on a CPM also because that scales. But if you're smaller, if you're out of that reach, try a flat rate. YouTube. We can't do a webinar of podcasting without talking about YouTube. YouTube is the engine and discovery. So that's where people go to discover shows. People are also consuming podcasts in there. They're watching, they're listening. There is also a way of people discovering there, consuming a little bit there, but then jumping to audio. So that's why, if you can, you don't have to, but if you can, and if you want, and if you think that it's going to help your podcast, you can start doing a video and then you can use audio to convert. I want to make a point here. You can jump into video, but you don't necessarily have to do this, have this great set with the great lights like Webneticos has here. You can do that if it's under, if it's in your budget. But recently in the newsletter, we shared a list of different creative ways of getting into video on YouTube that is not necessarily this, where you're sitting down and you have a great background and great lights and a great microphone and you're talking to a camera. This podcaster literally had his videos. One of the most recent videos is himself listening to his show. So you can listen to the show, but you're watching him, and he grabs his phone. He's outside. He grabs his phone. He puts it like this on the ground. And then you can see him outside gardening, like tending to his garden. So you're watching the host of the podcast that you're listening and you're listening with him, and he's just out there, dealing with plants, dealing with dirt. And that's a creative way because you're watching somebody, like you're watching the guy that made the thing, kind of like, re-listening to his show while he's doing his own thing. So that is one creative way, and there's a bunch of others, but there's a one creative way that you can jump into video without having to have, a great production. Your podcast can be very valuable and be a great business asset. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later on. So, what are you actually setting? These are the five things that you can actually sell. You can sell attention, like the attention of you have the attention of your audience, the ears, sometimes the eyes also. You have connection, your access, you have knowledge. What do you know? What are you an expert on? Or what can you talk for an hour without getting tired? That's the one thing that you can sell. You can sell experience, being in the room, being with different people that like this one single topic. And you can sell products. What do people take? And we're going to talk about products here soon. Another thing that you have to remember and keep in mind is, where is your audience? So if you're in Latin America, you can do, as I said, you can do campaigns, you can do fixed rate, you can do events, you can sell services. Latinos in USA, you can then use, Patreon or PayPal or all the Buy Me a Coffee, all these other ones. You can do membership, you can do scalable publicity. Like I said, if you have the numbers, you can do dynamically inserted ads. Your hosting probably has some sort of service where if you make X amount of downloads a month, you can apply to their service that has dynamically inserted ads. So you can just throw, whatever ads in the category that you want. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. And if you're in Spain and you're a creator, not only it's a bit similar to the US, although they have had some issues with platforms trying to kind of replicate what they do in the States and not having a lot of success. But what Spain does have is a lot of uh, support from private groups and public groups, from governments, where you can go to your local government and be like, I have this idea where I want to do this podcast about this one thing that has great significant cultural significance for our area, and they can, give you a grant. And if the public grant is not available, you have also private grants. So, and that may be also the case in different parts of the world. You need to check that. You need to go out there and be like, all right, what's available for artists and for creators in my local area? Is there a grant out there that will give me, cover the price of equipment, or will give me $500 at least, and you can use that to produce whatever idea you have because it has cultural significance or you think is important for a community or anything like that. So those are also things that you need to look, like what's out there in your area that you can take advantage of. So what's one creative play, one thing that we can use to also make money? Being present, events. So live and in-person events is an area that Spanish podcasting is actually is quite winning. Very recently, Spotify for 2 years in a row has had their Spotify Awards in Mexico. We've had examples of major podcasters doing shows, selling out theaters in Latin America as well as in the US, selling out theaters, selling out stadiums, filling rooms with people that love the same show. And those people, that audience wants to connect, don't not only see you, but then connect with other strangers that can, that like the show. A lot of these people, they don't know that there's so many people are out there that they enjoy that enjoy the shows as well. So you have to think about that. And now I mentioned stadiums and I mentioned theaters, but that's not necessarily, we don't, I'm not asking you to sell out your local theater, because that could be 1,000 seats, a small room, a coffee, a coffee shop, a classroom, a place where you can get 20 people together. Here in Puerto Rico, we've done the Meetup Podcastero PR. We had one a couple of months ago. It's been 15, 20 of us, and it's been an open conversation, just talking about, our ideas, our challenges, where to go, how to monetize, how to grow, should I do video, should I scale in audio, all of these different things, just networking and being around other creative people. Now, this was just a podcasters meetup, but if you know that you have an audience that's local to you and that wants to connect, you can absolutely start some sort of meetup and sort of live event, and you can definitely start, get some good return of investment there, and connecting to your audience too. Now, another thing that you can try is branded content. And remember when I said earlier that your podcast can be better than your resume and it can be a business asset? This is it. You can go to a brand and be like, this is my podcast, this is my show, this is what I've done. I would like to do that for you. You pay me to do a branded podcast, and I will take what I've learned and do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing. You made it. I mean, and this is a hill that I will die on. Podcasters are incredibly talented, very multifaceted. We all have a range that is insane, and more people, not only in podcasting, in every industry, should be hiring more podcasters because what you record, you have to connect your microphone. You have to work on your computer. You have to learn about marketing. You have to learn about speaking to a camera or speaking on a microphone, speaking to an audience that you're not seeing. You have to be extremely creative. You have to find a creative ways to promote your show. I mean, there's such a range of skills and abilities that we learn from, that as time goes by, learning how to do our own podcast. And sometimes we don't even realize. Sometimes you're just like, until somebody else asks you, like, "Oh, I want to do a podcast. Can you help me out?" And then all of a sudden, you're like, "Brrr," and you realize, like, "Oh my God, like I know what I'm doing." You know, so that's why you can then sell those skills and be like, and go to a brand and be like, "All right, I would like to use my skills to create a show for you because I love your service, love your tool or whatever." So that's something to keep in mind. Now, which model is for you? What's the model? What do you what can we use here? There's four questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you have a small but engaged audience, or is it just small? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have your own data, which is super important? And I'm also gonna talk a lot about newsletters. Create a newsletter for your show. Do you own that first party data? You're not waiting on Spotify or YouTube or whatever that's telling you that 40% of your audience is female from 30 to 55. No, you know exactly how many and your how much people, how many of those are women, how many are men, their age, their geographic, where they are in the world. Because when you go to a brand and you say 60% of my listeners are women from the age of 30 to 55, and they are based in the US with more in the Southwest. As specific as you can get for the brand, that's going to be more valuable. Where is your audience, which comes from your own data? And do you have something that you can teach or a niche that wants to buy? Are you in technology? Are you in business? Are you in educational niche? Do you have products? Do you have um uh services? And when I talk about products, we said digital products a lot. Can you sell an ebook or a PDF or something like that? But that's not, you need to think outside the box also and think about physical products as well. I follow a newsletter creator. He has a local newsletter in New York in the Catskills area. And when he was starting his newsletter, he also owned an Airbnb in the area. So he ordered a monopoly of the Catskills, custom made just for that area. And he put it in the Airbnb along with, a bunch of other different games that people that were staying could play and spend their time with. And people loved it. Like absolutely went insane for the monopoly of the Catskills. So what did he do? He had to order more, and he ordered a bunch more, and he used this newsletter to sell this product. And it's to this day, he says that it's one of the top things that he sells. And he sells a bunch of other stuff, but that's one thing. So he's not a podcaster, but he's using the newsletter and he's using other products, not necessarily the digital products, but like thinking outside the box and creating other products so that he can then have another income source. So this is your path. Buy your stage. Are you building? Do you have less than 500 downloads? You can use affiliate links. The hosting that you're using has an affiliate link. The place where you're editing your show probably has an affiliate link. Canva has an affiliate. Any affiliate links of anything that you use. And if they don't have it, send them an email. Be like, I would like to have an affiliate link, and have them figure it out if they don't have it. And definitely launch your newsletter. Own your data, know exactly who you're talking to, and then you can promote absolutely everything else in there. Do you have a small but engaged audience? Then you can do the flat rate. You can do crowdfunding products, as I mentioned. You can start with YouTube, but remember, if you fall into the threshold of what YouTube and the hours watched and the subscribers and all of that, so you need to make sure that you are under what YouTube wants, so you can start monetizing. Do you have an established niche? Are you talking to a very specific set of people? Then you can do online courses. You can sell your own services. You can have dynamic ads. You can have a community. You can have a paid community. And if you're scaling, like now, if you're really big, now you're blowing up, this is where you go with the events, live events. You can do branded content. You can have a branded segment in your show. You can have merch as well. But the golden rules when you're monetizing, you don't have to wait until you are big, as we've said, to monetize, but you also need to be a little bit aware. Do not create a podcast now and a newsletter now and start putting stuff out there and ads in front of people's faces. Gradually start. Maybe an affiliate link here and there, maybe if you have merch or something like that, but you need to create that relationship with the audience first before you start selling stuff, especially if it's your own things like courses or stuff. Because people right now, we're kind of like, flooded with experts and people trying to sell courses and digital things and whatever digital products that their first reaction is kind of like, So you need to start creating that relationship with your audience so that when you say, by the way, I have a course, it'll be like, okay, I will buy that course because I've listened to you before and I know that you know what you're talking about. So listen to your audience as well. Is your audience asking for this? Is your audience saying, I love the workflow that you have on your show or your podcast, or this one thing that you talk on your podcast? Do you have that? Like, do you have a PDF for that? Can you share it with me? Listen to your audience because they will be the ones to tell you which routes to take. Be authentic. Do not try to be something that you're not because you absolutely alienate people. People will understand. People will see that you're not this type of person, and then you're putting up something and they will cut you off. Diversify. Like I said, monopoly, ebooks, courses, different affiliate links. Try different things. Do not just, you know, trust one way of monetizing. Try different things. You don't want to put, all the eggs in one basket. You want to be able to have different income streams coming in different ways and validate quickly. Do you have an idea? This guy that I mentioned from that has the newsletter from Catskills, every time he has an idea for a new thing, he writes this on his newsletter and he asks his audience, "Hey, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you guys think?" Make a poll. People say if 70% of people say yes, go for it. Do it. So validate your ideas with your audience, listen to them, and they will help you out. The next thing is the newsletter. A newsletter multiplies everything. I've had a newsletter for almost 2 years now. It's been such a great tool, not only to share um, uh, the news and the trends and the strategy, but to connect with people around the world, know exactly where they are, what they like. Does this person like the strategies a bit more than they like the trends and the reports? Talking to them, being able to put ads into it, opening your own ads. Like I run classifieds. Just say, do you want to promote your podcast on my newsletter? Just tell me what it is, and it will cost you X amount of time, depending on how long you want to do it. Like you can just do that. Like you don't have to wait for the newsletter platform to be like, oh, you're big enough. Now you can put ads. Now you can put your own ads. You can go out there. If you are a salesperson, you can go out there and be like, look, I have this newsletter. It's like 300 people, but it's like very engaged, 300 people in this niche. And you can put your own ads in there. You can put your own ads for your own things too. Like if you do sell a service, if you can absolutely do that too. So you've seen it. I do have a guide that has this and 18 more things that that you can try. But it's what we've talked about is basically what's in that guide. But if you want it, that's definitely there in the QR code, and you can go. It's free, absolutely free. And I'm not even go. I'm gonna ask you if you want to subscribe to the newsletter. If you say no, it's fine. You can still have this. You don't have to subscribe to a newsletter to get this guide. It's totally free. It's totally ideas that have been out there, and yeah, like we want you to succeed. Again, you don't have to wait to be big. You don't have to wait to reach a certain number to do great things. There's a recent uh podcast in the Dominican Republic about basketball, like Dominican basketball. They had their own, their little thing. They've been going on for a while. They had a website as well. They had some social media experience. They decided they wanted to blow up. They created a studio. Now they're like, constantly creating content. They have different other podcasts are joining them as well. They're launching new things. They have a lot of video and stuff. They didn't wait. You don't have to wait. If you wait for somebody to tell you, go ahead and do it, don't. Just do it. You know, no one's gonna tell you, oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that. Just try. And you may be successful. You never know if you don't try. So I see some stuff in the chat. So is this a good time to get with questions, correct?
We can definitely open it up to questions. In the chat, we had people kind of introduce themselves, a little bit about who they are. So feel free to read that. But if anybody has any questions, this is the time. Feel free to add them into the chat. Um, and I'm sure JP has all your answers. Thanks for all the information.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I see some names here, Esther, from Medicina Culinaria. I know you have, we talked some time ago. Lex Roman, of course. Thank you, Lex, for being here. And Analia, who was the first one. I can't see anybody else. I can't see like other people that are in. There's other people that have been in the chat. Um, I realized that I made this is, wait. Oh, here it is. Right. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, Julio Axel Ponce. You can also follow me on Threads and Instagram, Julio Axel Ponce, TorbicaPodcasting.com. And also there's the ¿Qué está pasando en el podcasting, which is the show. Lex, I'm curious about the folks on Patreon. I like your recommendations for one-time payment. So this is a question from Lex. I'm curious about the folks on Patreon, etc. I like your recommendation for one-time payments for audience-backed creators. How do you recommend folks collect those payments every year? That is a great question. Um, Patreon is pretty global right now, so that if you just start if you're using a Patreon, pretty much anywhere else, people can use it. Um, yeah, so you just got like give them make it as less friction as possible, basically. So it's like again, they may not have the ability to constantly monthly by monthly pay you. So you would just want to offer that thing for like the 1 year, and it's just one payment and that's it. So I feel like Patreon is still one of the best places really to kind of monetize, and it's quite global. So wherever people, if the people they join and whatever, they should be able to use it fine. Jennifer says, was this session recorded and will you be sharing afterwards by any chance? Mm, Nancy, is that? You'll
Yep,
be able to see it later, right? Yeah.
correct. The session is recorded, and I will email it out to everybody that registered. And JP, if you want to share your slide deck with me, we can also share that with them.
Absolutely, yes. Analia, I've been building my newsletter even before the podcast, and I have a few hundred people subscribe. But one issue I have is that every time I send the poll or a request for feedback, I hear crickets. I hear sometimes from listeners here and there, uh, or through my guests, but it's been tough to build more engagement in between episodes. Any suggestion? I'm not gonna lie to you, Analia, that is very it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes happens to me as well, where you put a poll or you ask, did you like it? Did you like this newsletter? What did you like most about it? And it's very, very hard. I wouldn't, I mean, I get it because sometimes it can be frustrating when you're like, why am I writing this? People are not, they're not responding. You have to see, you have to find the success in other places then. Like, are the people clicking on the things that you are recommending? If you're recommending everything, or, if you put in links, are people clicking on those links? If they are, then at least you know that someone's out there actually doing. Because sometimes an open, you might see that the newsletter has been open one, two times, but that's not, it could be like a thing where the Gmail or whatever kind of reads and makes it look like it's been an open. So it's a little bit tricky. But are other people clicking on it? And to be honest, from what I've heard from other people in the newsletter industry, is that sometimes that's just how it is. You do ask for stuff and people just don't reply, don't give you any feedback because it's like, I don't know, it's a weird thing. But the one time that people like reply the most is when they find a mistake. Like maybe you made a huge typo and somebody will be like, "Oh, hey, you misspelled this." So it's annoying, right? Because like I don't want replies of this type. I want feedback from the content. But I feel like this happens. Like this is a constant thing, even on bigger newsletters. So I would say don't feel that disencouraged. Don't let that bring you down. It is frustrating, and I understand that because it happens to me as well. I'm sure that anybody with a newsletter feels the same way. But also try to find the success in other places. Or people are clicking it. Maybe it could also depend on where you're putting the poll. Like, are you putting it right when people open it and they see it? Or are you putting it at the end? Like you could try moving stuff around also. Um, what else? You could also kind of like give an incentive and be like, you know, all the people that do this poll, whatever, I'm gonna send you a $10 Starbucks card or something like that, like some sort of incentive, or be like, out of all the people that click on this poll, whatever, I'm gonna give you a 30-minute free consultation call, something like that. If you have a service or something that you can offer, that you can try to do to pull these people into connecting to so that you can then see that engagement. Esther says you could do a draw contest for those who respond for the poll. One winner gets to something. Yeah. Um, have high rates and click overall, so people seem to be reading at least. I mean, that's good. Like it's absolutely good. If you see that, a good open rate, a healthy open rate, compare also with a healthy click rate. That's absolutely, definitely one way of trying to define success. I always say that to podcasters too. When you start a podcast, you need to define what success looks like. When we started ¿Qué está pasando en el podcast? And me and Mayra said, we want to do this. We want to be invited to places to speak. We want to share our knowledge, but the main thing right now that we need to have a good time. Are we enjoying spending 40 minutes talking about podcasting? Are we having fun with each other? That's the main thing. And that can change. That was for the first, 6 months. After that, we sat down. Did we have fun? Absolutely. Do we want to keep having fun? Yeah. And let's change this, change this way. Maybe, this section, we'll do it this way. We'll skip this section, you tweak. But you can absolutely then decide what your success is, and nobody can say anything. They're like, oh, you only have X amount, 300, 500 subscribers. That's so little. No, that's great because that's what, that's not success for me. Success is this other thing. Um, yeah, right. So you said validated. Um, a reason to add the extra step. Yes, Janet Rodriguez, thank you so much for this webinar. Janet, thank you. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you so much. Um, and Lex, are you seeing different types of sponsors be interested in shows in the different markets, Latam versus US versus Spain? Um, well, yeah, absolutely. We have to remember, this whole thing where like the sponsor that this brand in the US, it might be heavily investing in podcasting advertisement or whatever in the US, but they're also in Latin America and they're not doing it because, they're like two different entities. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But there is in the US we have the majority of like services. We have a lot of like, instant food and even like the delivery and stuff, a lot of tech and whatever. Where in Latin America, I feel like it's been more from what I've read, because obviously, we can't see much of like the actual advertisement that's there. But from what I've read and seen and heard from other people, it's still more of like the legacy stuff, like or whatever legacy is for that country, for Peru or Colombia or whatever. Like those big established companies that have the big budgets to get on podcasts in a scalable way, so all around the places. Those are the ones that are kind of like using those things. So, and in Spain is a little bit different also because you have um oh um sorry, I need a battery for the computer. Talk to Wilson. Sorry. My battery needs to be plugged, but it should be fine. Um, so yeah, yeah, the Blue Apron stuff like yes. Other products that develop from their content. Yes, there was a podcasters that have a true crime show, and what they did was they actually did a like a one of these board games, the mystery murder board game, and you open the board game and there's an episode that you have to listen to, and then like there's a murder mystery and whatever, and then once you listen to the episode, then you have to solve the murder mystery, and this comes from a true crime show. So that's a very interesting way of creating um that sort of thing. Sorry, no tengo, sorry, one second, no tengo que desconectar uno de estos, porque estos tres solamente.
The mic.
¿Verdad?
Yeah.
Right. So sorry about this. I didn't think that this was going to eat the battery so much. It might be a little bit weird in terms of my audio, but give me 1 second, and then we can.
You sound good.
If you guys, I still sound good. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So thank you, Carlota. Yes, similar to the Monopoly game that I mentioned. I mean, that I thought that was a very cool idea. You have a true crime show. Murder mystery games are kind of are very they're very famous. A lot of people like that. So, and that's another way of just taking that experience of the podcast to the living room and kind of make it your own. You're making your own uh experience, your own live event. Um, Sorry about that, but yeah, thank you. You see how great Webneticos is? That was fixed in a second. Gracias, Winston. That's how great the service is in this place that I am in this studio, which is one of the best studios here in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or thoughts that you want to share? Feel free to add those into the chat.
Absolutely, yeah. And thank you, obviously, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Nancy and the Podcast Academy, for allowing me to share some of this knowledge, trying to help people grow their podcast and also, monetize so you can have a little bit of peace of mind and then you can focus on what you want to do, which is create your content. Because I know that a lot of people want to create great content, but they are troubled by this thing of like, I need something so I can, sustain all of this. So it's important to have, you know, any any ways of monetizing that you can afford or you can do. We often ask a lot from independent podcasters. We talk about that a lot on the show because, like I said, we have to do so much and we have to learn so many things. And there's always this new thing that comes up, and that we have to kind of they're saying, "Oh, you should be in here." So it's always about choosing the ones that work the best for you and the best for you and also for your audience, that where your audience is, where your audience wants. That's the one thing that you have to keep in mind. But also, there are ways that you can then keep doing what you're doing and keep creating your content and have a little bit of a extra income that can give you some breathing room.
Looks like we have one more question in the chat.
One more question. Analia, do you have any suggestions when you are building audiences across regions? For example, US based, but also in Latam, and monetizing without overextending? Yeah, I mean that's a great question actually, because yeah, like the what they do, the it's different from what happens in Latin, so what happens in the US. Affiliate links is one thing. Affiliate links is good. Anybody, if you are using, for example, Buzzsprout, you can use it in the US or you can use it in Colombia, like wherever. So affiliate links are good. Any crowdfunding, like anything that can be directed to you as well, if also works. I feel like that would be one thing, and or also like a flat rate sponsorship with a tool or something that you use. If you have if you have that audience, and if that audience definitely wants to use those things. So it's you need to look at what's general, and what can that audience, the same person that listens to you in the US and in the one in Latin America, can use. So software is great, like with the affiliate links and whatever. But I will feel like the less things, the ads and stuff like that, that doesn't necessarily, like programmatic ads and stuff, that may not work because that ad may get lost to the Latin America community or vice versa. So those are some things that, but definitely in the guide can help you also find different ways where you can, uh, you know, build those audiences, as you mentioned. All right, I think that's it, right? We're good on time. Yeah.
We are great on time. JP, thank you, honestly, for imparting all this kind of knowledge on us. Always super thankful. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We're hoping at TPA that we can continue to provide kind of more podcasting information for the Latin American community. If you know other ways that we can continue to grow in this area, always feel free to email me, nancy@thepodcastacademy.com. But JP, thank you for your time and sharing the space with us.
No, thank you, Nancy, and thank you to the Podcast Academy. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And Alia, Rex, Lex, Carlota, Esther, Janet, everybody that was here. Thank you so much. And yeah, absolutely. My social medias are there, so if you want to connect outside and keep this conversation going, you can absolutely can. But yeah, thank you for your time.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We will close up shop, and I will go ahead and send over the recording later today or tomorrow so that you can have that with you, and we'll share the resources with the slide deck as well. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much, JP.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.